Hello, my name is John, and I am here to show you guys an application I've been working on called Rhizome that is going to be released into the field in November in order to better deal with data problems in field and in management. So we're starting with polio, but the design of the application is such that we want to be able to extend it to other areas. So our website or our application settles on lands basically on a number of dashboards. The dashboards you can see here can be controlled by these menu items and also via different drill downs. So I can drill into Helmand and see some information. Uh, there is also different types of dashboards, for instance, for campaign monitoring, which is a different source of data. This is independent monitoring from WHO. And as you can see, there's a number of data pieces here. As you can also see, the application is quite buggy, so I need some help with that. And quickly to give you an overview of the code and the project in general, we have a GitHub account. The code is open, unicef/rhizome, and we are running a Python application and are using React as our JavaScript framework. We have basically a lot of work to do there, but as you can see, we have two apps here, data points and source data for the Python part. And for the JavaScript, we have web app. All of the code and the logic for the application is in source. You can see the different components here, and obviously you'll notice very quickly that data is, or that rather the JavaScript is quite bloated, and because of which we're having, or I would say it's just inconvenient to build. So check out more here to see what packages we're using. I will also give you a quick look at the documentation. Here's some information that's probably a bit out of sync, but you get the idea that I put in quite a bit of time to write the docs for the Python. Unfortunately, I was working on this prior with the consulting company, and I wasn't in charge of JavaScript. In fact, I'm a backend developer, and I've sort of been put in a position where I need to maintain the front-end code, so I've been trying to do that. But the JavaScript doesn't have documentation like this or tests, which, again, we need help with. I guess I can show you really quick some tests for data points, but I suppose that's probably better for techies to hit me up separately to go into that. A couple other things that I want to go into is data sharing. So if you're in the docs and you want to learn about how to hit our API, you can take a look here. It's pretty straightforward. The way that our data model works is based around indicators, campaigns, and locations. So as you can see here, the main model sort of that this database centers around is data point. So data point has an indicator or location, a campaign. So an indicator would be something like number of missed children due to refusal. A location would be something like Sokoto North Settlement, or perhaps Sokoto State, or etc. at various levels of hierarchy, admin level. The campaign is a pretty abstract idea for the future, so think about it as basically a measuring period. It's really a way that we bound indicators into time to think about if you're coming from another area other than polio, but for us this specifically means polio campaign. So in June of 2015 we went out and dosed kids in northern Nigeria, and that has ID number 6, so whenever I want to learn about anything having to do with that campaign, I use that key. We also have a quite so complicated and thorough ETL engine. ETL stands for Extract, Transform, Load, which is essentially how we get data into this table, and furthermore how we get it onto these dashboards. That is a bit of a different process, but I consider that to be the cache process. So for instance, a lot of these numbers here that you're seeing, like percentages, are generated in the back end from raw data. I can go into that more, but for those of you who are interested in interfacing with this, I will show you really quick in the GitHub account. If you go to ingest Rhizome here, I have a super simple example that I use for the Nigeria EOC office that basically is trying to pull a sample campaign for some ODK data. You can see that I'm trying to find indicators whose name starts with ODK. Parent location -1 means that this is the top level. So Nigeria, Afghanistan, Pakistan are 3 top level locations. You could change this to do different levels. For instance, if you wanted to interface with just Kano ODK data, I could work with you and get you to do that. But it's fairly straightforward. The data model is super abstracted, so we're thinking about scale, not necessarily scale technically, but scale from perspective of use case. How can we use this application? How can we use this data model to present and maintain an application effective for malaria or refugees or whatever? So I can go into one last thing, which is something that I'm kind of psyched about, which is this data flow. As I mentioned, the data point table is our kind of gold standard. We then have this cache process that aggregates, calculates, and then sort of caches in a form that the API can interface with very, very directly. So essentially, the idea is that when a page loads, for instance here, and this actually isn't how it works currently, which is something I need to fix, all the data that should be filtered or that should be rendered should have these 2 parameters, so this campaign and this region. If we do that in an effective and smart way, we will get a lot of value from that because of the fact that when people are in these districts, they are going to have really low internet access. So if you're essentially pulling from Nigeria or Afghanistan or Pakistan, you're going to have to pull a lot of data. That's usually okay because people that are sitting in the country office, not necessarily the country office, but at HQ can deal with that type of payload. But the application is designed, again, for scale, not just with use case or data, but with operational scale taken into consideration. So the data should only return, you should only get data that is relevant to you as a user, where you are, who you are. Some of these controls, as you can kind of see, lead to that. So I'll just talk really quickly about this, and then guys, I'll give you my information. It's dingeej, dingeej @gmail.com. You can see more. I think I'm on here somewhere. You can just like hit me up on GitHub or whatever. This is me. And just so this is the way that the data flow works, which is I think the reason that this is an exciting application. We have different ways to ingest data. So we have Excel CSV, which I sort of showed you here. You can upload a file, which I won't get into right now. You choose some configurations. I'll just upload them really quick. So we can walk through this all together. For upload, I will choose sample upload data. I can choose this unique ID column, location column. If anyone is seeing this and they're noticing any bugs or anything they want to work on, feel free to send me a pull request. Date of report sounds about right. So this is some sample ODK data, sync data, review upload. Review upload, I can see all the raw data. So for an ODK form, I can see all this cool stuff. Also for certain ODK forms, like health camps where you collect photos, I can link to the photo and embed it here, which is pretty sweet, same in movies or whatever. So this piece that we're seeing right here corresponds to this area, which is, so you create a document, which could be any of these types of sources. That document has submissions, 1 row per submissions, basically stored as JSON. So when we're looking at this here, we're looking at one submission row and essentially what came in from ODK for that. We have meta instance ID. I can tell you, I can give the person a phone call if I want. Actually not here, but you understand the deal. We then have the next step, which is, as you can see here, mapping. So the submission detail is sort of a little bit of an abstraction on top of source submission, in that it basically takes into account the mappings for campaign and location. So I can show you a little bit what I mean by that. Mapping here. So as I showed you before on that ODK screen, there was a source object code for what I have said to be this place in Nigeria. So there's a bunch of stuff that I would need to map, like different indicators. So vaccinated year, I guess this means probably children, females under 1 year vaccinated count, but again, I don't know. I would want to map it, so we would essentially have NOAA in Nigeria or somebody on the ground do that, which is kind of sweet, and that essentially allows us to flow through a number of steps. I don't know if all this is going to flow through because it's not live data, but the idea is that this process right now is a little bit sketchy, but it works, it gets the job done, and it allows us to ingest data from a number of sources. It's also abstract enough to work for Ebola, which I did a quick test on, and this is, I think, exciting for me because this is where my experience is, and I think that this type of system, if treated well, can be really, really useful. So please feel free to reach out if you want. I may not be super timely with my response. As you can imagine, I'm really have a lot of work to do, as I'm right now the only developer on this. Monday we're going to get ThoughtWorks to come on and help us, so that'll be good, and I can probably help with more data integration type stuff if you want, but better if you can plan it for a November 4th release, in which this will really be out there and for the field, and also for any developers that want to fork it or interface with the API. Thank you guys for your time. I'm John. Have a nice day.